The dust of the settlement square hung thick in the September air of 1876, and Olivia Oakes stood on a wooden platform with chains binding her wrists, knowing this moment would define whether she lived or died. The crowd gathered around the makeshift stage in San Bernardino, California, was a mix of prospectors, ranchers, and drifters who had come to see what the corrupt Marshall Henderson had put up for auction today. Olivia tried to hold her head high despite the humiliation burning through her veins. Her dark hair hung loose around her shoulders, and her simple cotton dress was torn at the hem from 3 days locked in the Marshall cellar. She had come to San Bernardino 6 months ago with her father, a schoolteacher who had dreams of establishing the first proper school in this rough settlement. Then yellow fever had swept through town, and her father had been among the dozen souls it claimed. Suddenly alone and with no family back east, she had tried to continue his work, teaching the handful of children whose parents could spare them from ranch work. But Marshall Henderson had other ideas. He had decided she owed back rent on the small house her father had leased, rent that had supposedly not been paid before his death. When she could not produce the exorbitant sum he claimed was due, he had declared her property of the town, to be sold to recoup the debt. It was illegal, immoral, and completely within his power in a place where law was whatever the man with the badge said it was. "Gentlemen," Marshall Henderson called out, his voice carrying across the square. He was a thick man with a graying beard and eyes that held no warmth. "We have here Miss Olivia Oakes, educated, young, strong. She can read and write, cook and clean. The starting bid is $50. Olivia felt bile rise in her throat. She scanned the crowd, looking for any friendly face, anyone who might help. Most of the townspeople avoided her gaze. They knew this was wrong, but no one dared stand against Henderson and his 3 deputies who stood at the edges of the square with rifles across their chests. $50, called out a voice from the back. Olivia's heart sank as she recognized Silas Drummond, a rancher known for working his hired hands nearly to death. He was at least 60 years old, with a reputation for cruelty. "60, came another voice. This one belonged to Thomas Wright, who owned the saloon. Olivia knew what fate awaited her if he won the bid. She closed her eyes, trying to pray, trying to find some strength to endure whatever came next. Her father had always told her that righteousness would prevail, that goodness existed in the world. She wanted desperately to believe him now. 70, Drummond countered. The bidding continued, climbing slowly. Olivia kept her eyes downcast, unable to watch the faces of the men bartering for ownership of her life. The sun beat down mercilessly, and sweat trickled down her back. She thought about her mother who had died when Olivia was 12, and wondered if she was watching from heaven, if she could somehow intervene in this nightmare. $120, Wright said, his voice confident. That was a substantial sum, more than most men in town would have saved up. A long silence followed. Olivia opened her eyes and saw Marshall Henderson preparing to bring down his gavel on a wooden post. 120, going once, $500. The voice cut through the square like a knife, and every head turned toward the source. Olivia looked up and saw a man stepping forward from the far edge of the crowd. He was tall and lean, probably in his mid-20s, with dark hair that touched his collar and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore dusty trail clothes, a dark vest over a worn shirt, and a gun belt that sat low on his hips. Everything about him spoke of hard miles and harder living, but his face held an intensity that made Olivia's breath catch. $500, he repeated, his voice steady and clear. Cash money, right here. He reached into his vest and pulled out a leather pouch that clinked with the sound of coins. Marshall Henderson's eyes widened with greed. Well now, that is a serious bid. Do I hear 510? The crowd had gone silent. Wright and Drummond both looked angry, but neither spoke. $500 was more than most men saw in 2 years of hard work. Whatever this stranger had, he was offering all of it. 500 going once, Henderson said, barely concealing his glee at this unexpected windfall. Going twice. He paused, looking around the crowd. Sold to the gentleman there. Step up and make your payment. The stranger moved through the crowd with a purposeful stride. Up close, Olivia could see the sun-weathered lines around his eyes, the shadow of stubble on his jaw, the way his hand rested naturally near his gun. He was dangerous, she realized, but there was something in his expression that was not cruel. As he mounted the platform, his eyes met hers for just a moment, and she saw something there that surprised her. Determination mixed with what might have been anger, but not directed at her. He emptied his pouch onto the table Henderson had set up, and the marshal counted the coins with eager fingers. Gold eagles, silver dollars, even some smaller coins. It took several minutes for Henderson to verify the amount, during which the stranger stood perfectly still, his jaw tight. $500 exact, Henderson finally announced. The girl is yours. Here is your bill of sale. He scribbled something on a piece of paper and handed it to the stranger, who took it without looking at it. Then the stranger turned to Olivia. He pulled a key from Henderson's desk and unlocked the chains around her wrists. The metal fell away, and Olivia rubbed the raw skin where the shackles had chafed. She looked up at this man who had just bought her freedom, or her bondage, she did not yet know which. "Can you ride?" he asked quietly. His voice was low, meant only for her. "Yes," she managed to say, her throat dry. "Then come with me." He turned and walked off the platform, and after a moment's hesitation, Olivia followed. Her legs were shaky from standing so long in the heat, but she forced them to work. The crowd parted for them as they crossed the square. She could feel dozens of eyes on her back, could hear the beginning of whispers and speculation. The stranger led her to a hitching post where 2 horses waited. One was a large roan gelding, clearly his mount. The other was a smaller bay mare with kind eyes. He gestured to the mare. "She is yours now. Her name is Honey." Olivia stared at him. "I do not understand. No time to explain here. We need to leave town. Now." His eyes flicked past her, and Olivia turned to see one of Henderson's deputies watching them closely. "Mount up." She put her foot in the stirrup and swung into the saddle. The stranger did the same with his roan, and then they were moving, walking the horses through the dusty streets of San Bernardino. Olivia's mind was reeling. Who was this man? Why had he spent such a fortune to buy her? What did he want from her? They rode in silence until they cleared the last buildings of town and were on the open trail heading north into the foothills. The sun was past its zenith now, starting its slow descent toward the mountains in the west. The landscape here was dry and brown, dotted with scrub brush and the occasional Joshua tree. The San Bernardino mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still holding patches of snow even in September. After about an hour of steady riding, the stranger finally spoke. "My name is Vincent Garrett. I am sorry I could not intervene sooner or in a better way. That was the only solution I could see that would not end in bloodshed." Olivia looked at him, studying his profile as he rode. "You spent $500. That must have been everything you had." It was. He did not seem bothered by this admission. "Why?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the trail ahead. "Because what Henderson was doing was wrong. Because no person should be bought or sold like property. Because I have been in San Bernardino for 3 days, and in that time I heard about your father, about how he tried to bring learning to this rough place. about how Henderson trumped up charges against you after he died. I heard about the auction, and I could not stand by and let it happen. But all your money." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes, though she fought to hold them back. "You do not even know me. Some things are more important than money." Vincent glanced at her then, and she saw a depth of conviction in his eyes that moved something in her chest. "I have been drifting for a long time, Miss Oakes, taking work where I can find it, saving what I earn. I thought I was saving for something. I just did not know what until I heard about what was happening to you. Maybe this is what the money was meant for all along." Olivia wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I do not know how I can ever repay you. You do not owe me anything. That bill of sale Henderson gave me, I will burn it as soon as we make camp. You are your own person, free to do as you choose." The words hit Olivia like a physical force. Free, she was free. This stranger had given her back her life and asked nothing in return. "Where are we going?" "There is a town called Calico about 2 days' ride north of here. It is a silver mining town, rough but growing. I heard they are looking for a schoolteacher. I thought perhaps you might want to continue your father's work there, in a place where Marshal Henderson has no reach." Olivia felt something break open inside her, a dam of fear and despair that she had been holding back for days. Tears streamed down her face now, and she did not try to stop them. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, Vincent Garrett." They rode on as the sun continued its descent. Vincent seemed content with silence, which gave Olivia time to process everything that had happened. She studied him when she thought he was not looking, trying to understand this man who had turned his life upside down for a stranger. He sat his horse with the easy grace of someone who had spent years in the saddle. His clothes were well worn but clean, his gear well maintained. He wore his gun like it was part of him, but he had not drawn it, had not threatened anyone with violence. He had simply outbid everyone with money he could not afford to lose. As evening approached, Vincent led them off the main trail to a small canyon where a trickle of water ran down from the mountains. "We will camp here tonight," he said, dismounting. "There is water for the horses, and the canyon walls will hide our fire." Olivia climbed down from Honey's back, her legs stiff from the ride. She had not ridden in months and her muscles were protesting. Vincent noticed her wince and said, "It will get easier. By the time we reach Calico, you will have your saddle legs back." He set about making camp with efficient movements that spoke of long practice. He unsaddled both horses and rubbed them down with handfuls of dry grass, then led them to the water. Olivia tried to help, but he waved her off. "You have been through enough today. Rest." She sat on a flat rock and watched him work. There was something almost meditative about the way he moved, each action deliberate and necessary. He built a small fire, using dried brush that would produce minimal smoke, and then pulled supplies from his saddlebags. Hardtack, dried beef, a small pot for boiling water. It was trail food, plain and simple, but Olivia's stomach growled. She had not eaten since the previous day. Vincent heated water and made a simple stew with the dried beef and some wild onions he gathered from nearby. He handed her a tin cup full of the hot broth, and Olivia drank it gratefully, feeling warmth spread through her body. "Tell me about your father," Vincent said as they ate. The fire crackled softly between them, and the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky above. Olivia smiled despite everything. He was a good man. Idealistic, perhaps too much so. He believed education could civilize the wildest places, that children deserved a chance to learn regardless of where they were born. "We came from Boston originally. My mother died when I was 12, and after that, it was just the two of us. He taught at a school there for years, but he always dreamed of going west, of bringing learning to the frontier. When I turned 21 last year, he finally decided it was time. "We sold everything we had and came to California." "You did not have to come with him," Vincent observed. "You could have stayed in Boston, married, had a stable life. He was my father, and besides, I believed in his dream too." Olivia looked into the fire. San Bernardino seemed like the right place. It was growing, had families settling in. For a few months it was wonderful. We had 15 students in our little schoolhouse. Then the fever came. Vincent was quiet, letting her talk. It happened so fast. He was sick one day, and 3 days later he was gone. I tried to keep the school going, but Henderson started making demands. He said my father had not paid rent, that he owed money all over town. None of it was true. I had all of my father's papers, his accounts. But Henderson did not care about proof. He just wanted any excuse to seize what little we had. She looked up at Vincent. "I think he planned to auction me off to Thomas Wright. They are friends, and Wright had mentioned more than once that I should come work at his saloon. When I refused, Henderson found his opportunity." "Henderson is a bully and a thief," Vincent said, his voice hard. "Men like him thrive in places where law is thin. They take power and abuse it, and no one stops them because everyone is afraid." "Were you not afraid?" Olivia asked. "He has deputies, guns. You just rode in and challenged him in front of the whole town." Vincent stirred the fire with a stick. "I have faced worse than corrupt lawmen, and sometimes you reach a point where doing nothing becomes impossible. I could not ride away and leave you to that fate. My conscience would not allow it." Olivia felt a surge of emotion she could not quite name. Gratitude, certainly, but also something deeper. This man was unlike anyone she had ever met. In Boston, the men she had known were either scholars like her father or merchants concerned mainly with business and social standing. The few suitors who had shown interest in her had been proper and reserved, following all the expected protocols of courtship. Vincent was something entirely different, rough-edged and direct, yet with a core of honor that shone through every action. "Where are you from?" she asked. "You said you have been drifting, but you must have come from somewhere originally." Vincent was silent for so long that Olivia thought he might not answer. Then he said, "Texas, a ranch near San Antonio. I left when I was 18 and have been moving ever since. 8 years of wandering, taking work as a ranch hand, a scout, sometimes as hired protection for wagon trains. I have seen a lot of the West, from the Dakotas to the New Mexico territory." "You have family back in Texas?" "I did once. My mother died when I was young, and my father—" He paused. "My father was not a good man. He drank, and when he drank, he was violent. I left as soon as I was old enough to survive on my own, and I have not been back." Olivia heard the pain beneath the flat tone of his voice. "I am sorry. It was a long time ago." Vincent looked at her across the fire, and in the flickering light his eyes seemed softer. "You should get some sleep. We have another long ride tomorrow." He gave her his bedroll, insisting he would be fine with just his saddle blanket. Olivia was too exhausted to argue. She lay down near the fire, wrapped in the rough wool blanket that smelled of leather and sage, and looked up at the vast expanse of stars overhead. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light, more stars than she had ever seen in Boston, more than she had imagined existed. She thought about the day's events, about the terror of standing on that platform, about Vincent Garrett stepping forward with everything he owned to save her. She thought about his quiet strength, the way he had treated her with respect and kindness even though he legally owned her, until he burned that bill of sale. She thought about his willingness to give up his savings for a stranger, guided only by his conscience. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, it was deeper and more peaceful than any rest she had known in days. Olivia woke to the smell of coffee. The sun was just rising, painting the canyon walls in shades of pink and gold. Vincent was already up, tending the fire and heating water in his small pot. When he saw her stirring, he poured coffee into a tin cup and handed it to her. "Morning," he said. "We should ride out within the hour. I want to cover good distance before the day gets too hot." Olivia accepted the coffee gratefully. It was strong and bitter, but it drove away the last cobwebs of sleep. She felt stiff and sore from sleeping on the ground, but also oddly rested. For the first time in days, she had not woken with the crushing weight of fear on her chest. They ate a quick breakfast of hardtack softened in the coffee, then broke camp. Vincent erased all signs of their fire and scattered the ashes. Within 40 minutes, they were back on the trail, heading north. The landscape changed as they rode, becoming more rugged. The trail climbed through rocky passes and descended into dry valleys. They saw few other travelers, just an occasional freight wagon heading south toward San Bernardino. Each time they encountered someone, Vincent positioned himself between Olivia and the strangers, his hand casually near his gun until they had passed. Around midday, they stopped to water the horses at a small spring. Olivia dismounted and stretched, trying to work the stiffness from her muscles. Vincent watched her with a slight smile. "You are doing well," he said. "Most people unused to long rides would be complaining by now." "I am complaining," Olivia said. "Just quietly to myself," he laughed, a sound that surprised her. It transformed his face, made him look younger and less careworn. Olivia found herself smiling in response. "How much farther to Calico?" she asked. "We should arrive tomorrow afternoon if we maintain this pace. It is not much to look at, Calico, just a mining camp that grew into a small town. But from what I heard, it is relatively honest. The miners might be rough, but they are not cruel. And there are families moving in, people trying to build something lasting. Your father's dream could work there." Olivia felt a pang in her chest at the mention of her father. "I hope so. I would like to think his vision did not die with him." They rode on through the afternoon. The heat was intense, the sun beating down from a cloudless sky. Olivia was grateful when Vincent called for another rest in the shade of a rocky outcropping. He handed her a canteen, and she drank deeply. "Tell me more about Boston," Vincent said as they rested. "What was life like there?" Olivia thought back to her childhood home, to the neat brick buildings and cobblestone streets. Crowded, busy, everyone always rushing somewhere. In the winter, the snow would pile up in the streets, and in the summer, the city smelled terrible. But there were bookshops on every corner and museums and theater. My father would take me to lectures at the university sometimes. I learned as much as any boy would have, though of course women were not allowed to attend officially. "You must miss it," Vincent said. "Parts of it, yes, but not as much as I thought I would. The West is different, harder certainly, but also more honest in some ways. People show you who they truly are. There is less pretense." She looked at him. "Like you. In Boston, a man in your position would have calculated the social costs and benefits before acting. He would have consulted friends, worried about his reputation. You just did what you believed was right, consequences be damned." Vincent shifted slightly. "I am not sure that makes me better. Sometimes I think it just makes me reckless." "It makes you brave," Olivia said softly, "and I will be grateful for it for the rest of my life." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, an understanding or recognition that made Olivia's heart beat faster. Vincent looked away first, standing up and dusting off his pants. "We should keep moving. I want to make the next water stop before dark." They mounted up and rode on. The sun continued its arc across the sky, and Olivia found herself increasingly aware of Vincent's presence beside her. She noticed small things: the way he sat his horse, the competent movements of his hands on the reins, the way his eyes constantly scanned the landscape, always alert for potential danger. She wondered what he thought about as they rode, whether he regretted spending all his money on her freedom, what his plans were after they reached Calico. As evening approached, they made camp in another small canyon. This one had better shelter, a slight overhang in the rock face that would protect them from any wind. Vincent built the fire closer to the rock wall, and the stone radiated back the heat, making their camp surprisingly comfortable as the desert night descended and temperatures dropped. Over dinner, another simple meal of trail food, Olivia asked, "What will you do in Calico? You said you have been taking work where you find it. Will you look for a job there?" Vincent stared into the fire. "I am not sure. I have no money left for a grubstake to try prospecting. I suppose I will see if any of the larger mining operations need security or if any ranches in the area are hiring hands. Something will turn up. It always does." "You do not sound particularly enthusiastic about any of those options." He smiled slightly. "No, I suppose not. The truth is, I am tired of drifting. 8 years is a long time to have no real home, no place where you belong. I have been thinking lately about settling somewhere, finding something more permanent, but that takes money which I just spent." "On me," Olivia said quietly. "On doing the right thing," Vincent corrected. "I do not regret it, Olivia. Please believe that." It was the first time he had used her given name, and the sound of it in his voice sent a flutter through her stomach. "I believe you, but I still wish there was some way I could repay you." "You do not owe me anything," Vincent said firmly. "Once we reach Calico and you are settled, our paths may never cross again. You will have your school, your new life. I will find work somewhere. That is how it should be." But even as he said it, Olivia felt a strong resistance to the idea of parting ways with this man. In just 2 days, he had become her protector, her salvation, and perhaps something more. She barely knew him, yet she felt drawn to him in a way she had never experienced before. Was it just gratitude? Or was it something deeper, some recognition that he was the kind of man her soul had been searching for without knowing it? She wanted to say something, to express these confusing feelings, but the words would not come. Instead, she said, "Will you tell me more about your travels? You said you have seen much of the West. What was the most beautiful place you encountered?" Vincent seemed grateful for the change of subject. He thought for a moment, then said, "There is a valley in the Colorado Rockies, high up in the mountains. I worked for a rancher there one summer, helping move cattle to the high pasture. The valley was full of wildflowers, every color you could imagine, and there was a lake so clear you could see straight to the bottom even where it was 20 feet deep. Elk would come down to drink at dawn, and eagles nested in the tall pines. It felt like the world before people touched it, pure and untouched." Olivia listened as he continued talking, describing other places he had been. The red rock canyons of Utah, the endless grasslands of Kansas, the strange beauty of the New Mexico desert. His voice was different when he talked about these places, softer and almost wistful. She realized that, despite his rough exterior, Vincent had the soul of a poet, someone who noticed beauty and held it close. "You should write these things down," she said. "Your descriptions are vivid. People would enjoy reading them." Vincent laughed. "I am no writer. I can read well enough and I write a passable hand, but nothing literary." "You do not need to be literary, you just need to be honest. That is what makes writing powerful." Olivia felt herself relaxing, falling into the kind of conversation she had enjoyed with her father, discussions about ideas and possibilities. If you settled somewhere, you could keep a journal. Record what you have seen, what you have experienced. It would be a legacy, a way to preserve those places and moments. Perhaps, Vincent said, though he sounded skeptical. Right now I am more concerned with practical matters, like how I am going to afford food and shelter once my trail supplies run out. You will find work, Olivia said with more confidence than she felt. You are strong, skilled, and honorable. Those qualities are valuable anywhere. They talked late into the night, sharing stories and thoughts. Olivia told him about her favorite books, about her mother who had loved music and used to sing while she cooked. Vincent told her about learning to break horses as a boy, about a kindly ranch foreman in New Mexico who had taught him to track and read the weather. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, and Olivia realized that she felt more comfortable with this man she had known for 2 days than she had with people she had known for years in Boston. Finally, exhaustion overtook them. Vincent banked the fire and gave her the bedroll again despite her protests. She fell asleep watching him settle in with his back against his saddle, his rifle within easy reach, always on guard even in sleep. The next morning dawned clear and hot. They broke camp early and pushed hard, both of them eager to reach Calico. The landscape became even more desolate, vast stretches of sand and rock broken only by the occasional Joshua tree or cactus. Olivia was grateful for the wide-brimmed hat Vincent had loaned her, which kept the worst of the sun off her face. Around noon, they crested a rise and saw Calico spread out in the valley below. It was larger than Olivia had expected. Dozens of buildings clustered around the base of a rocky hillside. She could see mine entrances dotting the hills and the skeletal structures of ore processing equipment. Smoke rose from several chimneys, and even from this distance she could hear the faint sounds of activity. "There it is," Vincent said. "Your new home if you want it." They rode down into town slowly. The main street was unpaved and dusty, lined with buildings that ranged from permanent wooden structures to canvas-topped shacks. Olivia saw a general store, a blacksmith, several saloons, a hotel, and what looked like an assay office. Men moved about their business, some in work clothes headed to or from the mines, others in the slightly better dress of merchants and proprietors. Vincent led them to the largest hotel, a 2-story wooden building with a sign reading Calico House Hotel. They dismounted and tied their horses to the rail outside. Inside, the lobby was surprisingly clean and well appointed. A middle-aged woman stood behind the desk, and she looked up with a welcoming smile as they entered. "Welcome to Calico House. Are you looking for rooms?" Her eyes moved between Vincent and Olivia saw her making assumptions about their relationship. "2 rooms," Vincent said firmly. "The lady is newly arrived and will need accommodation while she gets settled. I am just passing through." The woman's expression shifted slightly, becoming more curious and perhaps more approving. "I see. Well, we have rooms available. $2 a night for a single with a bed and wash basin, $3 for a room with a private bath. Meals are extra." "I will take the single," Olivia said quickly, knowing Vincent had no money left. "Just for 1 night?" the woman asked. Olivia hesitated. She had no money at all. Everything she had owned had been taken by Henderson. She looked at Vincent, feeling helpless. Vincent stepped forward and placed something on the desk. It was a gold ring, simple but well made. "This should cover a week's stay and meals for the lady. I will not need a room." "Vincent, no," Olivia said. "That is yours. You have already given up everything." "It was my mother's," he said quietly. "She would have wanted it used to help someone in need. Take it, Olivia. A week will give you time to meet with the town council about the teaching position to get established." The hotel keeper picked up the ring and examined it. "This is worth more than a week's stay. I can give you the room for 2 weeks, all meals included, and return $1 in change." "That is fair," Vincent said. "Give the $1 to Miss Oakes. Before Olivia could protest further, the transaction was complete. The hotel keeper, who introduced herself as Mrs. Patterson, led Olivia upstairs to a small but clean room with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a window overlooking the main street. Vincent followed with Olivia's few belongings, which amounted to almost nothing, when Mrs. Patterson left to get fresh linens. Olivia turned to Vincent. Tears were streaming down her face. "Why do you keep doing this? You have given me everything. Your money, your mother's ring. What will you have left?" Vincent reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. The touch was brief but electric, sending shivers through Olivia's body. "I have my horse, my guns, and my skills. That is more than many people start with. You needed help and I was able to give it. That is all that matters. But where will you go? What will you do?" "I will find work. There are several large mining operations here. One of them will need an extra hand. I will be fine, Olivia. Promise me," she said urgently. "Promise me you will not just disappear, that I will see you again before you leave town if you decide to move on." Vincent looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Want, perhaps, or longing, or something even deeper. "I promise," he said finally. "I will not leave without saying goodbye." He turned to go, and Olivia felt a surge of panic at the thought of him walking out that door. "Vincent, wait. Have dinner with me tonight, please. Mrs. Patterson said meals were included. I have so much to thank you for. At least let me share a meal with you." He hesitated, then nodded. "I would like that. I will come by at 6 o'clock. After he left, Olivia sat on the bed and let herself cry properly for the first time since her father died. She cried for all the fear and pain and uncertainty of the past weeks. She cried for her father's lost dreams and her own terror on that auction block. And she cried for Vincent Garrett, the mysterious cowboy who had given up everything to save her and who was preparing to walk away asking nothing in return. When the tears finally stopped, she washed her face in the basin and looked at herself in the small mirror hanging on the wall. Her face was thinner than it had been, marked by recent hardship, but her eyes were clear. She was free. She was alive. And she had been given a second chance to pursue her father's dream. She spent the afternoon exploring Calico and making inquiries about the teaching position. The town had no official government, but there was a loosely organized council made up of the owners of the larger businesses. She learned that they met twice a month at the general store. The next meeting was in 3 days, and she made sure her name was on the agenda to discuss establishing a school. As she walked the dusty streets, Olivia noticed several families, women and children among the rough miners and laborers. There were probably 24 school-aged children in town, she estimated. More than enough to justify a school if she could convince the council to support it. At 6 o'clock, she was back at the hotel, wearing the same dress she had worn for 2 days because it was the only one she had. She had washed as best she could and pinned her hair up, trying to look presentable. When Vincent arrived, she felt her heart leap at the sight of him. He had clearly made an effort as well. His face was freshly shaved, his hair combed back, and he wore a clean shirt she had not seen before. He must have visited the general store and spent some of his last remaining coins on it. The thought touched her deeply. Mrs. Patterson served them dinner in the small dining room off the lobby. It was simple fare, beef stew with vegetables and fresh bread, but it tasted like a feast after days of trail food. They ate slowly, savoring the hot meal and the comfort of being indoors. "Did you find work?" Olivia asked. Vincent nodded. "The Silver King mine needs security guards for their payroll runs. They are expecting a large shipment of cash in 2 days to pay the miners their monthly wages. The manager hired me on the spot when he learned I had experience protecting wagon trains." It pays well, and if I do a good job, there might be permanent work." "That is wonderful," Olivia said, genuinely happy for him. "And you found a place to stay." "There is a boarding house on the edge of town that rents beds for 50 cents a night. It is not luxurious, but it is dry and relatively clean." He smiled. "What about you? Any progress on the school?" Olivia told him about her plans to address the town council, about the families she had seen and the children who needed education. As she talked, she felt her passion for teaching reignite. This could work. Calico could be the place where her father's dream finally took root. They talked through dinner and long after, sitting in the hotel dining room as the evening shadows lengthened. Mrs. Patterson brought them coffee and discreetly left them alone. Olivia found herself telling Vincent things she had never told anyone, fears and hopes and dreams. He listened with complete attention, occasionally asking questions but mostly just being present in a way that made her feel truly heard. "I am afraid I will fail," she admitted at one point. "That I will not be able to live up to my father's vision, that the council will reject my proposal, that I am not strong enough for this." Vincent reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was calloused and warm. "You are one of the strongest people I have ever met, Olivia. You endured Henderson's cruelty with dignity. You rode 2 hard days across desert with barely a complaint. You are here, making plans and moving forward instead of giving up. That is real strength." Olivia looked down at their joined hands, feeling the calluses from hard work, the strength in his fingers. "I would not be here without you. You saved me in every way a person can be saved." "You would have found a way," Vincent said. "You have that kind of spirit." "I just helped speed things along." But Olivia knew better. Without Vincent's intervention, she would be the property of Thomas Wright or Silas Drummond right now, facing a future too horrible to contemplate. This man had literally given her back her life, and she was falling in love with him. The realization hit her with stunning force. She was in love with Vincent Garrett. Somewhere in the past 3 days, between his quiet strength and gentle kindness and unwavering honor, she had lost her heart completely. She looked up at him, wondering if he felt any of what she felt, if the connection she sensed between them was real or just her imagination born of gratitude. As if sensing her thoughts, Vincent's grip on her hand tightened slightly. "Olivia, I need to tell you something. These past few days, traveling with you, talking with you, they have been the best days I have had in longer than I can remember. You are remarkable, and I find myself thinking about you constantly. But I have nothing to offer you. No money, no home, no prospects beyond day labor. You deserve so much more than a drifting cowboy who lives from job to job. So I want you to know that I understand my place. I will not presume on what happened between us, will not make any claims on your friendship or affection. You are free to build whatever life you want here, and I will not interfere with that." Olivia felt her heart breaking and soaring at the same time. He cared for her, she could hear it in his voice, see it in his eyes. But he was preparing to walk away because he thought he was not good enough for her. "Vincent," she said softly, "do you really think I care about money or prospects? You are the most honorable man I have ever met. You have shown me more kindness and respect than men with 10 times your wealth ever did. I do not want you to walk away. I want," she hesitated, unsure how to put her feelings into words, afraid of being too forward. "What do you want?" Vincent asked, his voice rough with emotion. "I want you to stay. I want to see where this connection between us leads. I want a chance to know you better, to explore these feelings I have when I am with you." The words came out in a rush, and Olivia felt her cheeks flush. "I know it is bold of me to say these things. I know we have only known each other 3 days, but they have been the most intense 3 days of my life, and I do not want them to be the end. I want them to be the beginning." Vincent stared at her, and she could see the battle playing out behind his eyes. Want warring with honor, hope fighting with doubt. Finally, he said, "Are you certain? I am not the kind of man you are used to. I have no education beyond what I taught myself. I have done hard things in hard places. My past is rough and my future is uncertain. You could do so much better than me." "I do not want better," Olivia said firmly. "I want you, if you want me too." Vincent stood up, still holding her hand, and pulled her to her feet. They stood facing each other in the empty dining room, and Olivia could feel the tension crackling between them like lightning. "I want you," Vincent said, his voice low and intense. "I have wanted you since the moment I saw you standing on that platform, so brave and so beautiful. I want you with everything I am, but I need you to be sure, Olivia, because if we start down this road, I will not be able to turn back. My heart will be entirely yours." In answer, Olivia stepped forward and rose on her toes to kiss him. It was her first real kiss, and it was everything she had imagined and more. His lips were soft despite his rough exterior, and he kissed her with a gentleness that made her knees weak. His free hand came up to cup her cheek, and she leaned into the touch, feeling safe and wanted and cherished. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I am yours," he whispered, "for as long as you will have me." "Then you are mine forever," Olivia said, "because I am never letting you go." They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other's arms, feeling the rightness of being together. Outside, the sounds of calico continued, the rough music of a mining town at night. But inside the hotel dining room, Olivia and Vincent had found something precious and rare. Love born of honor, strengthened by adversity, and made real by mutual choice. The next few days passed in a blur of activity and stolen moments. Vincent was busy preparing for the payroll run, meeting with the mine manager and the other guards who would accompany him. Olivia spent her time preparing for the council meeting, drafting a proposal for the school, making lists of needed supplies and books. But every evening, they found time to be together. They took long walks around the outskirts of town, talking about everything and nothing. Vincent told her more about his past, about the loneliness of drifting, about the people he had met and the places he had seen. Olivia shared her memories of Boston, her love of literature, her hopes for the future. They discovered they both loved the early morning hours when the world was quiet. They both preferred coffee to tea. They both believed in the fundamental goodness of people despite evidence to the contrary. These small discoveries felt momentous, each one another thread weaving them together. Vincent was unfailingly respectful, always conscious of Olivia's reputation. He never came to her room, always said good night in public spaces, never pushed for more than she was ready to give. But the attraction between them was undeniable. Every touch, every glance carried the weight of unspoken desire. Olivia found herself counting the hours until she could see him again, living for those moments when their hands would brush, or he would smile at her in that way that made her feel like the only woman in the world. The payroll run was scheduled for the morning after her council meeting. Vincent was tense that evening as they sat together on the hotel's front porch. "I wish the timing were different," he said. "I want to be there when you meet with the council to support you." "You will be earning money to support us both," Olivia said, squeezing his hand. "That is support too." "I will be fine, Vincent. I know what I am doing and I believe in this dream." "I know you will succeed," Vincent said. "I have no doubt about that, but I will be thinking about you the entire time. The run should take 2 days, maybe 3. We have to ride to San Bernardino to pick up the payroll and bring it back. As soon as I return, I want to know how it went." "Be careful," Olivia said. "Promise me you will be careful. Payroll runs are dangerous. If there are bandits, I will be careful, Vincent assured her. I have done this kind of work before. I know how to watch for trouble and avoid it when possible. I will come back to you, Olivia. I promise. That night before they parted, Vincent pulled her into the shadows beside the hotel and kissed her deeply. I love you, he said against her lips. I probably should not say it so soon, but I cannot help it. I love you, Olivia Oakes. I love you too, she whispered back. Come back to me safely. The next morning, Olivia stood at her window and watched Vincent ride out with 3 other men in a sturdy wagon. He looked back once before they disappeared around a bend in the road, and even from a distance, she felt the connection between them like a physical cord. She pressed her hand to the window glass and said a silent prayer for his safe return. That afternoon, she dressed in her only clean dress and made her way to the general store for the council meeting. Her heart was pounding, but she forced herself to walk with confidence. 6 men waited inside, sitting on barrels and crates around the pot-bellied stove that dominated the center of the store. They looked her over with expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. The owner of the general store, a man named Mr. Hutchins, introduced her. Gentlemen, this is Miss Olivia Oakes. She has requested time to speak with us about establishing a school here in Calico. Olivia stood tall and began her presentation. She talked about the importance of education, about the families settling in Calico who wanted better futures for their children. She explained her qualifications, her experience teaching in Boston and San Bernardino. She outlined a budget, showing how a school could operate on minimal funds if the council could provide a building and basic supplies. She spoke with passion and conviction, channeling her father's idealism and her own determination. The council members listened in silence. When she finished, there was a long pause. Then one of the men, a burly fellow who owned one of the larger mines, said, "Miss Oakes, that was quite a speech. But I am going to be blunt. Most of us here never had much schooling ourselves, and we turned out fine. Why should we spend town money on books and such when there are more practical needs?" Olivia had expected this objection. Because you want Calico to be more than just a mining camp, do you not? You want it to grow into a real town, a place where families settle permanently instead of just passing through. That only happens if there are schools and churches and other institutions that make a place feel like home. And educated children grow up to be the next generation of doctors, engineers, teachers, and leaders. If you invest in them now, they will build Calico's future. Another council member spoke up. Where would this school be? We do not have any empty buildings. There is an old storage shed behind the assay office, Olivia said. It is currently unused. With some cleaning and basic repairs, it could be converted into a 1-room schoolhouse. I would do much of the work myself if needed. The discussion went on for nearly an hour. Olivia answered every question, addressed every concern. She could feel the tide slowly turning in her favor. These were practical men, but they were not unreasonable. They could see the value in what she was proposing. Finally, Mr. Hutchins called for a vote. All in favor of allocating funds for a basic school with Miss Oakes as teacher, say aye. 4 ayes rang out. 1 abstention. 1 no from the skeptical mine owner, but that was not enough to defeat the measure. The motion passes, Mr. Hutchins announced. Welcome to Calico, Miss Oakes. We will provide the building and $50 for initial supplies. Your salary will be $20 per month, paid by the families who send their children. Does that seem reasonable? More than reasonable, Olivia said, fighting to keep the tears of relief and joy from flowing. Thank you, all of you. I promise you will not regret this. She practically flew back to the hotel, wanting desperately to share the news with Vincent. But of course, he was not there. He was somewhere on the trail to San Bernardino with the payroll wagon. She would have to wait at least another day before she could tell him about her triumph. That night, she lay in bed thinking about the future. A school of her own, a chance to teach and shape young minds, and Vincent, strong and kind in hers. They could build a life here together. He could find permanent work at one of the mines, or perhaps start a small ranch of his own eventually. They could marry, have children, grow old together in this rough but honest place. The next day passed slowly. Olivia visited the old shed that would become her schoolhouse and began making plans for its transformation. She made lists of supplies she would need, started thinking about curriculum. Several mothers came by the hotel to introduce themselves and promise they would send their children when the school opened. Each conversation added to Olivia's excitement and sense of purpose, but underlying everything was worry about Vincent. The trail to San Bernardino was dangerous, and a payroll wagon was a tempting target for outlaws. She tried to push down her fears, to trust in his skills and experience. But as the second day stretched into evening with no sign of the wagon's return, her anxiety grew. The third day dawned hot and still. Olivia rose early and stood at her window, watching the road into town. Hours passed with no sign of movement. By afternoon, she could barely sit still. She paced the hotel, went for walks, returned to watch the road again. It was nearly sunset when she finally saw them. 4 riders and a wagon moving slowly up the main street. Olivia's heart leaped, and she ran downstairs and out into the street. She could see Vincent now, riding tall in the saddle on his roan. Relief flooded through her with such intensity that her knees went weak. The wagon pulled up in front of the Silver King mine office. The manager came out, along with several armed men. Olivia hung back, not wanting to interfere with official business, but keeping Vincent in sight every moment. The payroll was unloaded and carried inside under heavy guard. The guards dismounted, looking exhausted and dust-covered. Olivia saw Vincent speaking with the manager, saw him gesture down the trail. Something had happened, she realized. There was a tension in his posture that had not been there before. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Vincent separated from the group and walked toward her. As he got closer, she could see a bandage around his left arm and what looked like a bruise along his jaw. "You are hurt," she said, reaching for him. "It is nothing serious," Vincent assured her, but he allowed her to take his good arm and lead him toward the hotel. "We ran into trouble about 10 miles outside San Bernardino. 6 men tried to ambush us. We fought them off, but it got rough for a few minutes." Olivia felt like she might be sick. "You could have been killed." "But I was not," Vincent said gently. "I kept my promise. I came back to you." In her room, Olivia insisted on examining his injuries. The bandage covered a bullet graze along his upper arm, painful but not deep. The bruise on his jaw was from being thrown against the wagon during the fight. She cleaned the wound with water from her basin and rewrapped it with strips torn from a spare petticoat Mrs. Patterson provided. "The mine manager was impressed with how we handled the situation," Vincent said as she worked. "He offered me a permanent position as chief of security. It pays $75 a month with housing provided. I would oversee all the guards, manage security for payroll runs and ore shipments." "It is real work, Olivia, steady and respectable." Olivia looked up from bandaging his arm. "That is wonderful. Did you accept?" "I told him I needed to talk to someone first." Vincent reached up with his good hand and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Because if I take this job, it means I am staying in Calico permanently. And before I make that commitment, I need to know if you still want me to stay. If you still want this future we have been imagining together." "Of course I want that," Olivia said. "Vincent, I love you." Nothing that has happened has changed that. If anything, these days apart have made me more certain. I want you here. I want us to build a life together. Then I will take the job." Vincent pulled her into his arms, mindful of his injured one. "And as soon as it is proper, as soon as you are comfortable with it, I want to marry you. I want to make you my wife, Olivia Oakes." "Yes," Olivia said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you, Vincent Garrett." They sealed the promise with a kiss that was deeper and more passionate than any they had shared before. This was the kiss of two people who had found home in each other, who had chosen to walk the same path no matter how rough the terrain. When they finally pulled apart, Vincent smiled at her. "Tell me about the council meeting. Did they approve your proposal?" Olivia laughed, realizing in all the worry and relief she had forgotten to share her own news. "They did. I have $50 for supplies and a building to use. The school will open in 2 weeks. I am officially the teacher of Calico." "That is perfect," Vincent said. "So we are both employed, both settled. We can actually build something here." Over the following weeks, they both threw themselves into work. Olivia spent long hours transforming the old shed into a proper schoolhouse. Vincent helped her in the evenings after his shifts at the mine, repairing the roof, building desks from scrap lumber, whitewashing the walls. The townspeople, seeing their enthusiasm, pitched in. Women donated spare blankets for the children to sit on until there were enough desks. Men contributed nails, wood, and labor. The council's $50 went toward books, slates, chalk, and paper. The school opened on a bright October morning with 16 students ranging from 6 to 14 years old. Olivia stood at the door of her little schoolhouse, her heart full to bursting as children filed in. Vincent had taken the morning off to be there for her first day, and he watched from the back of the room with obvious pride as she began her first lesson. It was everything her father had dreamed of. The children were eager to learn, their parents grateful and supportive. Olivia taught reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and geography. She told them stories of the wider world and helped them see possibilities beyond the mines and harsh landscape of Calico. Every day, she felt her father's presence in the work, felt that she was honoring his memory by carrying on his vision. Vincent flourished in his new position as well. He took his responsibilities seriously, implementing better security measures for the mine. The owner was so pleased with his work that he gave him a raise after just 1 month. He also made good on the promise of housing, providing Vincent with a small but sturdy cabin on the edge of town. "It is not much yet," Vincent said as he showed Olivia the cabin one evening, "but it has a good foundation and the roof is solid. There is room to expand, add more rooms as we need them. I thought we could make it our home after we are married." Olivia walked through the 3 rooms, seeing the potential. "It is perfect," she said. "We will make it beautiful together." They decided to marry in early December, giving Olivia time to establish her school and allowing them to save some money for the wedding and for starting their life together. The weeks leading up to the ceremony were filled with joyful preparation. Olivia used some of her salary to buy fabric, and with help from several of the mining wives, she made herself a simple but lovely dress in cream-colored cotton. Vincent bought a new suit from the general store, the first new clothes he had owned in years. They were married on a Sunday morning in December at the little church that had been established just the month before. The whole town turned out for the ceremony. Olivia had no family present, and Vincent's only living relatives were back in Texas, but they did not need anyone else. The community of Calico had become their family, these rough-edged but good-hearted people who had welcomed them and supported their dreams. Olivia walked down the aisle on the arm of Mr. Hutchins, who had kindly offered to give her away. When she saw Vincent waiting for her at the altar, looking impossibly handsome in his new suit, tears of happiness streamed down her face. He was watching her with such love and devotion that she felt like the luckiest woman alive. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to love and support each other through whatever challenges life brought. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent kissed her with such tenderness that several of the women in attendance had to dab at their eyes. The townspeople threw them a reception at the hotel, with food contributed by all the families and music provided by a miner who played fiddle. Olivia danced with her new husband, laughing as he admitted he was not much of a dancer but trying his best. They danced until her feet hurt, surrounded by friends and well-wishers, celebrating not just their marriage but the new life they had built together. That night, in the cabin that was now their home, Vincent carried her over the threshold. He had spent days preparing the place, making it as comfortable as possible. There were curtains on the windows, a fire crackling in the hearth, and wildflowers in a jar on the table. It was humble, but it was theirs. "I still cannot believe you are my wife," Vincent said, holding her close. "Sometimes I think I will wake up and discover this was all a dream." "It is real," Olivia assured him. "This is our life now, Vincent. We are home." They made love that night with a passion that had been building since they first met. Vincent was gentle and attentive, making sure Olivia felt cherished and safe. Afterward, they lay tangled together in their bed, talking quietly in the darkness. "You ever think about that day in San Bernardino?" Olivia asked, tracing patterns on his chest. "About the auction, about how scared I was." "I think about it often," Vincent admitted. "I think about how close I came to not being there, to riding through town a day earlier or later and never knowing you existed. It terrifies me to think we might have missed each other." "But we did not miss each other," Olivia said. "You were there exactly when I needed you. Maybe that is fate or divine intervention or just incredible luck. Whatever it was, I am grateful every single day." Vincent kissed the top of her head. "I spent 8 years drifting, never finding a place or purpose. Now I understand I was searching for you. Everything I experienced, every place I went, it was all leading me to that square in San Bernardino, to the moment when I could save you and in doing so, save myself." "We saved each other," Olivia said softly. "You gave me freedom and safety. I gave you a reason to stay still, to build something lasting." "You gave me everything," Vincent corrected. "You gave me love and home and a future worth living." Their first year of marriage was marked by hard work and deep happiness. Olivia's school thrived, with more students joining as word spread about her excellent teaching. Parents who could not afford to pay in cash contributed food, firewood, or labor, helping maintain the schoolhouse and later assisting Vincent in expanding their cabin. Vincent's work at the mine continued to go well. His fair treatment of the guards under his supervision and his keen eye for security threats earned him respect throughout Calico. The mine owner consulted him on major decisions, valuing his judgment. By their first anniversary, Vincent had saved enough money to buy 2 horses beyond his roan, with plans to eventually establish a small breeding operation on the side. They fell into comfortable routines. Olivia rose early to prepare lessons, and Vincent would bring her coffee in bed before heading to the mine. They ate dinner together every evening, sharing the details of their days. On Sundays, they attended church and then spent the afternoon walking in the hills around Calico, escaping the noise and dust of town to find moments of peace in the harsh but beautiful landscape. In the spring of their second year together, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. She told Vincent one evening as they sat on the porch of their expanded cabin watching the sunset. "I am going to have a baby," she said simply. Vincent went very still, then turned to look at her with wonder in his eyes. "Are you certain?" "Yes. Mrs. Patterson suspected before I did. She has 7 children of her own, so she knows the signs. I am due in November." Vincent pulled her into his arms, his voice thick with emotion. "A baby. We are going to have a baby. Olivia, I never imagined, I never let myself hope for this kind of life." "We are going to be a family," Olivia said, tears streaming down her face. "A real family." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Olivia continued teaching until late October, when the physical demands became too much. The mothers of her students rallied around her, bringing food and helping prepare the cabin for the baby's arrival. Vincent became increasingly protective, fussing over her constantly, which Olivia found both endearing and occasionally annoying. Their son was born on a cold November night. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Olivia feared she might not survive. But Mrs. Patterson, who served as midwife, was experienced and competent. Just before dawn, their baby boy entered the world with a lusty cry that announced he was strong and healthy. Vincent held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect," he whispered. "Absolutely perfect." They named him James Daniel Garrett, after Olivia's father and Vincent's long-dead but still remembered mother, whose name had been Danielle. Little James had his father's dark hair and his mother's eyes, and from the beginning, he had a sunny disposition that brought joy to everyone who met him. Olivia took a few months away from teaching to focus on her baby, but by spring, she was eager to return to the schoolhouse. Vincent's mother lived too far away, but several of the mining wives offered to watch James during school hours, rotating the responsibility so no one was overburdened. It was another example of how the community of Calico had become their extended family. As James grew from infant to toddler, Olivia and Vincent's life settled into a rhythm of work, family, and love. Vincent continued to rise through the ranks at the mine, eventually becoming second in command to the owner. Olivia's school became an institution in Calico, and she took pride in watching her students grow and learn. Some of them would eventually leave for further education in larger cities, while others would stay and build Calico's future, just as she had predicted to the council all those years ago. When James was 3, they had a daughter. Emily Grace Garrett was born in the spring with her mother's auburn hair and her father's serious gray eyes. She was quieter than her brother, but no less beloved. Vincent doted on his daughter, and Olivia often found him reading to her from books that were far too advanced, convinced she understood every word. The years passed in a blur of school programs, mine operations, skinned knees, and laughter. Vincent expanded their cabin twice more, adding bedrooms for the children and a larger kitchen for Olivia. He also made good on his dream of raising horses, starting a small breeding operation that became known throughout the region for producing sturdy, reliable mounts. Olivia continued teaching, watching multiple generations of children pass through her schoolhouse. In 1885, 9 years after they had met, Vincent and Olivia took their children on a trip to San Bernardino. James was 8, Emily was 6, and Olivia was pregnant again with their 3rd child. It was the first time either of them had returned since that fateful day of the auction. The town had grown considerably, with new buildings and a more established feel. As they rode down the main street, Olivia looked for the square where the auction had taken place. It was still there, though it was now a proper town plaza with a fountain in the center. "Is that where it happened, Mama?" James asked. He knew the story of how his parents met, though they had kept some of the darker details from him. "Yes," Olivia said. "That is where your father saved me." "I did not save you," Vincent said, as he always did when she told this version of their story. "I just helped you get to where you needed to be." "You saved me," Olivia insisted, "in every way that matters." They did not stay long in San Bernardino. The place held too many painful memories, though it also held the beginning of their love story. As they rode back toward Calico, Vincent reached over and took Olivia's hand. "You ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Do you ever wish you had ended up somewhere else with someone else? Someone who could have given you an easier life?" Olivia looked at her husband, this man who had sacrificed everything for her, who had built a life with her brick by brick. She looked at their children, healthy and happy, riding their ponies ahead of them. She thought about their home in Calico, the school that bore her father's dreams, the community they had helped build. "I have never regretted a single moment," she said firmly. "You gave me the greatest gift anyone could give, Vincent. You gave me freedom, but more than that, you gave me love. You gave me partnership. You gave me this beautiful life we have created together. How could I ever regret that?" Vincent raised her hand to his lips and kissed it. "I love you, Olivia Garrett. I have loved you from the moment I saw you, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "And I love you," Olivia said. "My hero, my husband, my home." Their third child was born that fall, another boy they named Thomas William. He came into the world easily, as if eager to join his boisterous family. With 3 children now, their cabin felt full and alive with constant activity. Vincent added yet another room, joking that at this rate they would have the largest house in Calico. The 1880s and 1890s brought changes to Calico and to their family. The silver mines that had built the town began to play out, and some families moved on to other boom towns. But enough stayed, building ranches and businesses that did not depend on mining, that Calico transformed from a temporary camp into a permanent community. The school that Olivia had fought for became the heart of that transformation, educating the children who would become the town's future leaders. Vincent's horse breeding operation grew successful enough that he was able to leave his position at the mine and focus on it full-time. He hired several hands to help with the work, and the Garrett Ranch became known throughout Southern California. He never forgot his years of drifting and always treated his hired men fairly, paying good wages and providing decent housing. Their children grew strong and capable. James showed an aptitude for working with horses and spent hours at his father's side, learning the business. Emily inherited her mother's love of learning and became Olivia's teaching assistant by the time she was 14. Thomas, the youngest, was the family's adventurer, always exploring the hills around Calico and coming home with stories of what he had discovered. In 1896, when Olivia was 41 and Vincent was 43, they celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary. The town threw them a party in recognition of their contributions to Calico's growth and success. Over 100 people attended, many of them former students of Olivia's or men who had worked for Vincent at some point. As Olivia stood beside her husband, surrounded by their children and friends, she thought back to that terrifying day in 1876 when she had stood on an auction block facing an unknown future. She thought about the stranger who had stepped forward with everything he owned to free her. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, to this moment of love and community and lasting achievement. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, noticing her distant expression. "I am thinking about how one moment can change everything," Olivia said. "How one act of courage and kindness can ripple out and affect so many lives. You did not just save me that day, Vincent. You saved everyone who has been touched by the school, by our family, by the life we built together. Your courage changed the entire trajectory of this town." Vincent shook his head. I think you give me too much credit. You are the one who built the school, who taught hundreds of children, who made Calico a place worth staying in. I just rode in and spent some money." "You gave me the chance to do all those things," Olivia said. "And you spent not just money, but everything you had. You bet your entire future on a stranger because you believed it was the right thing to do. That kind of moral courage is rare, Vincent. Do not diminish it." He pulled her close, and they swayed together to the music being played by a small band. "We did it together," he said finally. "Everything good in my life has come from choosing you, from deciding that saving you was more important than keeping my money. Best investment I ever made." Olivia laughed and kissed him, not caring who saw. Even after 20 years, the spark between them had not dimmed. If anything, it had grown stronger, tempered by shared struggles and joys, by the building of a life and family together. As the century turned, bringing the 1900s, Olivia and Vincent entered their 50s with grace. Their children were grown now, making their own paths. James married the daughter of a neighboring rancher and took over more of the daily operations of the Garrett Ranch. Emily went to San Francisco to attend college, one of the first women from Calico to do so, though she promised to return and help with the school. Thomas joined the Army, seeking adventure beyond the California desert, though he wrote long letters home describing his experiences. Olivia continued teaching, though she reduced her hours as younger teachers joined her. The one-room schoolhouse had been replaced by a proper 2-story school building with multiple classrooms. It was named Oakes School in honor of Olivia's father, and a plaque by the door acknowledged both his vision and her work in bringing it to fruition. Vincent remained active in the community, serving on the town council and using his success to help other young men get started in ranching or business. He never forgot what it felt like to be broke and drifting, and he tried to offer others the kind of chance he had been given through hard work and Olivia's love. On a warm evening in 1906, they sat together on the porch of their ranch house, now a substantial structure that bore little resemblance to the small cabin they had started with. They were grandparents 3 times over now, with more grandchildren likely on the way. The sun was setting over the San Bernardino mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You remember our first night on the trail?" Olivia asked, taking Vincent's hand. "When you made that terrible stew from hardtack and dried beef," Vincent laughed. "It was not that terrible. You ate it. I was starving. I would have eaten anything." Olivia smiled at the memory. "But I remember sitting by that fire, watching you move around the camp and thinking that I had never met anyone like you. You were so competent, so calm. I felt safe for the first time since my father died." "I remember watching you," Vincent said, "thinking about how brave you were, how you held your head up despite everything Henderson had done. I remember deciding that night that I would do whatever it took to help you succeed, to see you happy. You did that, and so much more." Olivia rested her head on his shoulder. "We have had a good life, have we not? A really good life." "The best life I could have imagined," Vincent agreed. "And it all started because I happened to be in San Bernardino on that particular day, because I heard about the auction, because I decided that some things are more important than money." "Fate," Olivia said softly. "It had to be fate that brought us together." "The odds against it were too great for it to be mere coincidence." "Maybe," Vincent said. "Or maybe the world just works out sometimes. Maybe good things happen to people who are brave enough to take chances and kind enough to care about others." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. The sounds of the ranch drifted to them, horses nickering in the corral, the distant laughter of ranch hands finishing their evening meal. It was a peaceful scene, the result of 30 years of hard work and love. "Vincent," Olivia said eventually, "if you could go back to that day in 1876, knowing everything you know now, would you still do it? Would you still spend every penny you had to buy my freedom?" Vincent did not hesitate. "In a heartbeat, without question, every single time. Even knowing how hard some of the years would be. The struggles, the worries, the times when money was tight. Especially knowing those things," Vincent said. "Because I also know about the joy, the love, the children and grandchildren. I know about the life we built together, about waking up next to you every morning for 30 years. I know about being truly happy for the first time in my life. All of that was worth everything I gave up and more." Olivia felt tears slide down her cheeks. "I thank God every day for you. For your courage, your honor, your love. You are the best man I have ever known, Vincent Garrett. And you are the best thing that ever happened to me, Olivia Garrett. My wife, my partner, my everything." They kissed as the last light faded from the sky. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. Around them, the ranch they had created hummed with life. In town, the school that bore her father's name would open its doors again tomorrow, carrying on a dream. Their children were happy and successful, carving out their own places in the world. It was more than either of them could have hoped for on that September day in 1876, when a desperate woman stood on an auction block, and a drifting cowboy decided that saving her was worth everything he owned. They had both been lost, both been searching for something without knowing what it was. And in finding each other, they had found home, purpose, and a love that would last all their days and beyond. As they rose to go inside for the night, Vincent took one last look at the stars. He thought about the boy he had been, fleeing a violent father in Texas. He thought about the young man who had drifted for 8 years, never finding a place to belong. He thought about the moment when he heard about the auction and felt something shift inside him, a certainty that he was meant to be there, meant to act. "What are you thinking?" Olivia asked from the doorway. Vincent turned and smiled at her, this woman who had been his salvation and his anchor for 3 decades. "I am thinking that I would do it all again. Every hard mile, every struggle, every uncertain moment, all of it was worth it to end up here with you." "Come inside," Olivia said, holding out her hand. "Come home." And Vincent Garrett, who had spent so many years searching for a home, took his wife's hand and walked through the door of the house they had built together, into the warmth and light of the life they had created. He was home. He had been home since the moment he decided that freeing Olivia Oakes was more important than anything else in the world. That decision had cost him everything he had, but it had given him everything he needed. It had given him love, family, purpose, and a legacy that would endure long after both of them were gone. In the years that followed, Vincent and Olivia continued to be pillars of the Calico community. When Vincent passed away in 1921 at the age of 68, the entire town attended his funeral. Olivia stood by his grave with their children and grandchildren, remembering the young cowboy who had changed her life with a single act of courage. She lived another 7 years, continuing to advise the school board and mentor young teachers until her death in 1928. They were buried side by side in the Calico Cemetery, under headstones that read simply, "Vincent Garrett, 1853–1921, Man of Honor. Olivia Garrett, 1855–1928, Beloved Teacher." But those who knew them understood that the true memorial to their lives was not in stone, but in the thriving town they had helped build. In the generations of students Olivia had taught, in the family they had raised, and in the enduring example of what it means to choose love and honor over everything else. The story of how they met became legendary in Calico. Grandchildren would ask to hear it again and again. The tale of the auction and the cowboy who bid everything he had to free the woman he would love for the rest of his life. It became a reminder that courage matters, that one person can make a difference, that love is worth any price. And somewhere in the great mystery beyond this life, Vincent and Olivia Garrett were together still, their love undiminished by death, their legacy living on in the town they helped create and the countless lives they touched. They had started with nothing but each other and built an empire of love, family, and community. It was a story for the ages, a testament to the transformative power of honor, courage, and choosing to do the right thing no matter the cost.